Hello and welcome to the 7 Secrets to Raising Confident Kids. This is Balaji O, Dr. Hero, and I'm excited to take you through everything that we've gathered in this particular area. Now, this is my family. I am a husband and father of 2 brave young heroes. I have just the most amazing wife and incredible young sons that I'm raising, and I'm so privileged to play this role of parent to these 2 boys. Brave Young Heroes is a company that helps kids discover their superpowers so that one day they can go forward and change the world. We've been privileged to be featured in local newspapers, on TEDx, on local TV stations, in the Leader in Me conference symposium, and even on a Superhero World tour. We've touched hundreds of thousands of kids across the world, from Ethiopia to Dominica and all across the United States as well. But things weren't always so rosy for me. I wasn't always a superhero personality. This is my class picture from the 6th grade. Yes, and that's me, the guy at the end of the arrow there. You might not be able to tell by the body language, but yeah, I was a prom king. No, not really. I was not the most confident young man in 6th grade. As a matter of fact, I struggled with confidence quite a bit. I experienced social anxiety in crowds or in groups of unfamiliar people. I felt very shy and second guessed myself a lot, and it just felt like all the kids around me, all my friends, were more extroverted. They were more outgoing. They were more popular. They were wittier, and I was always the guy who would, get to have the witty comebacks like 6 hours after the moment had passed. I didn't get it. I didn't understand what was wrong with me. I felt broken, and I tried a whole bunch of different things, visualization, positive thinking, but I continued to experience this voice of doubt, this voice that lowered my self esteem, this voice that told me I wasn't good enough somehow. I just wasn't up to speed with the other kids. And it was frustrating. It was frustrating. As an adult, I found my way through that phase, but it lasted quite a while. And one of the motivations behind creating Brave Young Heroes was that I did not want my kids to have to go, shoot, a couple of decades like I did before becoming comfortable in their own skin. Albert Einstein, the late great Albert Einstein, had a quote. He said, he's a fascinating guy, and not just in physics, but he said, everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, yep, yep, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. How is this relevant to us as parents? Now, everybody thinks that their baby is the most beautiful child in the world, okay, and rightfully so. I thought so as well when my 2 beautiful sons were born. We think the world of our kids, but at the same time, we realize that our kids, just like ourselves, are not perfect. They can't do it all. They can't be good at everything. Okay? And so in some cases, they are going to be that proverbial fish trying to climb a tree. And our job is to help them realize that, hey, as a fish, you will thrive in the water. Trying to climb a tree, you could go ahead and attempt that, but don't feel badly if you don't find yourself climbing as fast as a squirrel does. Now, as much as we build our kids up at home, too many kids are being torn down at school, right? 3.2 million students are victims of bullying in the United States each year. As a matter of fact, 71% of students, that's almost 3 out of 4, say that bullying is a problem at their school. And 75% of girls with low self-esteem, so sometimes girls start to experience the bullying maybe a little earlier than the boys. 70% of girls that have low esteem reported engaging in negative activities. And these are some pretty scary things indeed. There's more. There was recent research, as we try to figure out, how can we build up our kids' confidence so that they're not victims of bullying, right? We all want our kids to be bully proof. Well, recent research indicated that internalizing problems and low self esteem actually increases a child's risk of being bullied. This is probably intuitive to us, but the challenge to us as parents is this: how do we help our kids not internalize these problems? Right? We can't eradicate bullying completely from the world. Listen, as an author, as Dr. Hero, I'm doing my part. I'm doing my darndest to reduce incidents of bullying in our schools and to increase a culture of kindness. But we cannot eradicate bullying. So, for the kids who are exposed to bullying, how do we help them not internalize those negative stimuli? How do we build up their esteem? It's this important, guys. It is this important. The CDC reported a few years ago that in a typical 12-month period, this is sobering, 13% of American high school students seriously consider suicide. I just got to let that sink in for a moment. 10% make plans about how they would end their lives. And 6.3% actually attempt suicide. This is heartbreaking stuff. This is heartbreaking stuff. And as parents, we have to take a stand, not just for our kids, but for our kids' friends and for the kids that are in our community. We've got to take a stand to help build these kids up. There's a wonderful book that I stumbled upon a few years ago. It's by Angela Duckworth. It's called Grit: The Power of Passion and Perseverance. And one of the things that Angela says is that it isn't suffering that leads kids to hopelessness. It's suffering that they think they can't control. Right? So we cannot protect our kids from everything. We can't put them in bubble wrap and send them off into the world. They will get hurt. But how they respond to that hurt is under their control. What's the definition of confidence? All right, we want to increase our kids' confidence. So let's kind of get on the same page here. So confidence, according to the dictionary, is a feeling of trust in one's abilities, qualities, and judgment. A feeling of trust. You guys know what that is, right? There's some scenarios in which you feel confident. And there are other scenarios where even as adults, am I right? You still have some areas of your life where you don't feel confident. And that is completely normal, by the way. That is completely human. No one, you'd be surprised. There are individuals who look like they have it all together, but absolutely no one is comfortable in every single scenario. You find an adult that seems super confident, and I'll have them try to learn how to do the latest dance that the kids are doing in elementary school, or put them on roller skates if they've never roller skated before. There's always something that can make you feel less than confident. And so as parents, right, there are generally three accepted categories of parenting styles. There might be a few more, but these are generally the three most accepted ones, the three big buckets, right? And remember, as parents, we're trying to prepare our kids, we're trying to nurture our kids to become confident and capable adults. We're trying to grow them into respectful, moral, law-abiding citizens that can contribute to the world. So on the one hand of the scale, you have what is called permissive parenting. And by the way, parents, none of us are perfect. Okay, so no matter where you may fall on this scale, and probably at times in different situations, we found ourselves on one end or the other. No judgment. This is a no judgment zone. Shoot, just yesterday I was going through it with my 11-year-old. He's starting to hit he's in the preteens now, and so I'm having to really step my game up as a parent to be more patient, to be more intentional, and to not fall into either the permissive or the authoritarian style. But permissive is essentially where the parent ensures that the child is loved, the child is nurtured, but then the child doesn't necessarily have the boundaries or the consequences to keep them safe and to help them develop their own healthy decision making abilities. So that's sort of a permissive parenting style. On the other end of the scale, you have the authoritarian parenting style. It's my way or the highway. It's only speak when you are spoken to. It is do it because I said so. It's the yelling. That's authoritarian. Authoritative is in the middle. It takes the best of both worlds because permissive does something really well. It makes sure the child is nurtured and loved, okay? Authoritarian does something really well. It makes sure the child has clear boundaries and consequences to help them improve their decision making. Authoritative gets rid of the negatives on both of those sides, right? And so authoritative is nurturing, it is caring, the child feels loved, the child feels heard. That's a really big thing in our house now. My 11-year-old, he wants to feel heard, so the child feels heard. But the child also understands ahead of time where the boundaries are and what the consequences are for crossing the boundaries, as well as the why the parents have put boundaries and consequences there, right? So those are the three different parenting styles. And there have been a lot of different articles about the impacts of these different parenting styles. Remember, we're trying to build confidence, but for example, awarding kids for participation, which a lot of us who have young kids that play sports, we see this quite a bit. It is not the best way to build confidence. As a matter of fact, it is counterproductive over the long term. It reduces the child's confidence. Why is that? Why is that? We're talking about building confidence, and if our child, if their team comes in fourth or fifth place, why not give them, a prize for effort? Here's why. So there's a wonderful book by Jessica Lahey. She is a middle school teacher. She taught for about 20 years. She taught Latin and English literature. And she wrote this book titled The Gift of Failure: How the Best Parents Learn to Let Go so Their Children Can Succeed. In the book, Jessica says, failure is a critical part of our children's development. Complimenting kids who are struggling with something actually makes their self-esteem, catch this, go down, not up. It makes their self-esteem go down. There's more. There's a doctor by the name of Carol Dweck. She's a psychologist. She's been a leading psychologist for the past few decades. And in her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, here's what she says. Praising children's intelligence. Oh, this is good stuff, guys. Praising children's intelligence harms their motivation, all right? And it harms their performance. You know how we tell our kids, oh, you're so smart. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, Carol continues. She says, yes, children love to be praised for their intelligence and talent. We all do, by the way. But the minute they hit a snag, what happens? The minute they hit a snag, their confidence goes out the window and their motivation hits rock bottom. I mean, if success means they're smart, then failure means they're dumb. That's how the child interprets it. That's what's called a fixed mindset. And if we praise our children's inherent intelligence, we run the risk of giving them a fixed mindset for life. Here's what our kids think success looks like, okay? At the top. And of course, they're kids. They haven't been through all the bumps and bruises and obstacles and failures like we have, okay? So they think, I want to go from point A to point B. My 11-year-old tells me I'm going to be a professional soccer player in the English Premier League. And I tell him, all right, go for it, kid. You got it. Now, here's what I tell him, though. I tell him, if you put in the work, if you practice and train like a professional soccer player, you can do it. Here's what our kids think success looks like, and the image below shows what it actually looks like, right? So it's not a direct, smooth path from A to B. It is a path filled with rocks, valleys, broken bridges, sharks, oceans, piranhas, storms, the whole nine. Does that mean there isn't a path to success? No. There is a path to success. You just have to be ready to go through the fire in order to get there, right? Let's talk a little bit more about the book Mindset. There was another quote that I really enjoyed as I combed through the book. Carol Dweck, the author, she says, parents think they can hand children permanent confidence, like a gift, by praising their brains and their talent. It doesn't work, and in fact, has the opposite effect. The best thing you can do is to teach your children to love challenges, be intrigued by mistakes. I hope you guys are getting this. Enjoy effort and to keep on learning. Oh man, I gotta go over that one more time. The best thing that we can do, guys, is to teach our kids to love challenges, number one, be intrigued by mistakes. This is contrary to what our kids are getting in schools. We want them to be intrigued by their mistakes. We want them to enjoy the effort and the process of learning. That way, our kids don't have to be slaves of praise. Please stop paying your kids for grades. Our children don't have to be slaves of praise. They will have a way to build and repair their own confidence. Oh, this is powerful stuff. A friend of mine once said, he said a pastor in his church actually asked the congregation this question, and regardless of your faith, or this is simply a wonderful question for parents. Are you preparing the path for your children, or are you preparing your children for the path? Let's really think about that. Let's really think about that. My kids play soccer. And just a couple of days ago, my 11-year-old had a soccer game that was a 3-hour drive away. 2 hours and 45 minutes into the drive, he says, uh-oh, from the backseat. I'm like, what? He says, I forgot my cleats. Boy, let me tell you something. I felt like my head was about to explode. What would you do in that situation? What would you do? Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, okay? I had driven 2 hours, 45 minutes already, and I had a good mind to just turn right back around and take him home and not let him play. My second thought was to take him to the game, but make him sit on the bench, on the sidelines, with no shoes on. I wanted to let him feel the consequences of his decision, his lack of preparation, right? Did he do something morally wrong? No. It was an oversight, but it had a consequence. And so often we as parents smooth over the consequences for our kids instead of letting them experience the pain of that consequence so that their decision making improves, so that their character improves. Now, long story short, I know you guys want to know how the story ended. Long story short, I made a detour. We looked for a Dick's Sporting Goods store, which was 20 minutes out of the way, and picked him up some shoes, rushed back to the game. We were late. He got there and so on and so forth. Man, I was so upset. But it's hard. It's hard. Did I make the right decision in that situation? I don't know. Maybe I should have let him feel all the consequences in that position. But I think whenever we are at that fork in the road where our kids have made a mistake, they left their big project at home, or they're dilly-dallying in the morning and they're going to be late for school, sometimes we do need to let them feel that pain. Ultimately, it will build their self-confidence. Now, we've been talking about this word confidence, and I want to ask you a question. In the dictionary, the confidence was actually defined as a feeling, right? So let me ask you this. Is confidence a feeling or an action? Is confidence a feeling or an action? I want you to think about that, and we're going to revisit that in just a couple of minutes. But while you are thinking about confidence and whether it's a feeling on the one hand or an action on the other hand, I want to reveal the 7 steps to raising confident kids. Okay, this is something that I've been studying for the past decade as a parent, and as an author of children's books. And I've been able to pull together, after going through books and articles and following psychologists and lots of experts in different fields, I've been able to pull together what I think is the essence of raising confident kids, right? So and there's an acronym ISUPER, okay? So the I is for identity, the S is for superpowers, the U unlimited gratitude, the P is for purpose, E is for empathy, the R is for resilience, and there's a mystery seventh step that will be revealed. I'm about to break all this down. Are you guys ready? Are you ready? All right, let's do it. So, number one, the I is for identity. What does identity mean? What do we mean when we say identity? Identity essentially answers the question, who am I? What do I stand for? That's identity. And as parents, we have over the years found and shaped and honed our own identity. Our kids are still early in that process. But now, are they going to be intentional about that process or reactionary? Is their identity just going to kind of fall onto them, fall into their lap, happen to them, or do they have the opportunity to actually pick and choose what they want to stand for? There are several different characteristics. There are about 24 character strengths that are universally recognized as the positive character strengths that have been found throughout history in every civilization. Things like bravery, honesty, hope, enthusiasm, love of learning, kindness, perspective, social responsibility, gratitude, creativity, perseverance, even humor. All of these are positive character strengths. Now, we can't be necessarily good at them all, but each of us has the opportunity to take what we have innately in our personality and then to add what's important to us and to our family and to come up with an identity to say, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. It's so important for our kids to actually get that opportunity to intentionally define who they are before they hit middle school, before they hit high school, because once they get into those teenage years, they're going to have kids trying to tell them who they should be. They're going to have social media trying to tell them what they should be. They will have entertainment, TV, movies trying to tell them what they should be. And I got to tell you, personally, I don't want social media and TV and other kids at school raising my kids. I don't want them defining my kids' identities, right? So we want our kids to walk out of the house with this armor on, that, okay, this is what I stand for. And if somebody tries to come at me and tries to make me do something that is contrary to who I am, I mean, it's not going to make sense. It won't even make sense for me to go that way, because I don't do that. I don't do that. It's funny. So I told you I have two sons, right? They're 11 and 8 right now. And a couple of years ago, we like to play board games, family board games, right? So a couple of years ago, my older son accuses my younger son of cheating, right? We're all playing. It might have been Monopoly, and we're playing, and the older son is like, "Hey, you cheated!" And the younger son says, "No, I didn't." And now, I had my back turned, so I don't know what happened. But what was my response? Now, I could have interrogated the younger kid and said, "Hey, what happened? What did you do?" I could ask the older kid, "What did you see?" I didn't do that. Here's what I did, and here's where identity comes in. I didn't even talk to the younger kid, right? I didn't talk to my younger son. I just looked at my older son and I said, "Don't worry. Our family doesn't cheat." You guys catch that? I just, in that one statement, I just gave both of my sons a piece of their identity. I looked at the oldest and I said, "Don't worry. Our family doesn't cheat. We're not cheaters." And then I looked at the younger son and I said, "Right, son?" And he said, "Right." Boom, case closed. Now, what if the younger kid actually did cheat? Well, after that moment, he's going to know, Yeah, our family doesn't do that. That's not our identity. And what if he was innocent? What if it was just a misunderstanding? Well, then he feels seen, he feels recognized, there's no hard feelings. Identity is critical to a child's confidence. Now, how do they get that identity? Of course, one is studying role models. And who's the first role model they're going to study? It is parents, right? They look up to us. Forget what you tell your kids. Your kids are doing what you do. Your actions speak so much louder than your words in terms of imparting identity and character and values to your kids. You already know that. You already know that. But let's take it a step further. So, Parenting Magazine actually said in a recent article that kids need to read stories about role models, okay? Whether it's biographies or fiction, kids actually need to step into the shoes, step into the life of somebody else, walk in their shoes, and see how that person's identity, that person's values shaped their decisions. So we need our kids reading. And this is one of the reasons why Brave Young Heroes uses fiction stories as a vehicle. We're not just talking about superheroes, guys. We're talking about character. We're talking about raising our kids with confidence. And that's what happened with me. These are books that I read as a kid, way before I even knew what impact they were having on my life. So you guys remember how much social anxiety I had as a kid, how shy I was as a kid, how low my self-esteem was as a kid. I was reading C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia. I read all the books. I was reading fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm. I was reading Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. Lord of the Flies. Woo! Lord of the Flies was something else. I was reading The Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Sherlock Holmes, Choose Your Own Adventures, and of course, I was reading comic books. All of those things added to the character that my parents were instilling in me, right? But they added that other layer because you guys know, especially when the kids start to enter the adolescent years, right? A lot of what the parents have taught them is baked in, but now they start to feel like they're grown. They don't necessarily want to listen to what mom and dad have to say all the time. So at that point, they start looking to secondary sources for validation or for instruction as to who they really are. And that's why we need to surround our kids not only with positive friends, they've got to have positive peer pressure. We also want to give them positive media. We can't just turn them loose on Netflix or on YouTube and let them watch whatever they want because that's their brains are still forming. That is influencing their identity and their character. So they need to be reading about role models, right? And these are some of the role models that I created. I created these for my two sons. I started off with the younger superheroes when my kids were younger and had just started to read. And as they grew older, I started to create teenage superheroes going through more mature situations, everything age appropriate, just to help my kids to understand how to face adversity, how to have confidence despite not being perfect, despite not being the strongest, the fastest, the smartest, the wittiest, the most confident, being able to be comfortable in their own skin. That's why we created Brave Young Heroes. So the first lesson, the first step to instilling confidence in your kids is helping them shape their identity. Step number 2, if the I is for identity, the S is for superpowers. Help your kids find their passion. Help your kids find their passion. So the Child Mind Institute, a fantastic organization that works on children's mental health, they said exploring their own interests can help kids develop a sense of identity, which is essential to building confidence. What are your kids into? What are your kids into? And whatever it is, allow them to pursue that with their entire being. Now, they don't have to know what they want to be when they grow up. The kids might say, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a policeman, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. Whatever it is that they say now, the likelihood that it's going to change, we know this as adults. The likelihood is fairly high. But whatever they say for now, even if it's unrealistic, back them up on it. Validate them on it. Challenge them, right? So let them know that, yes, they can accomplish it, but let them know if that's your passion, Now you got to put in the work, right? So encourage them to start to build. And the Child Mind Institute also says allow them to fail along the way. A lot of us parents whose kids play sports or do dance or cheer or do music, we always want our kids to win, right? That actually doesn't serve them well. They need to lose. They need to lose. They need to experience disappointment, right? Not every time, right? They don't need to be playing way out of their league, but they need to be playing a little beyond their best abilities. That serves them well because it teaches them that failure is not fatal, and it could also spur them to greater effort, right? So we want to help our kids to find their passion, to let them know that the road to success is it's not smooth, it's rough, it's up and down, it's jagged, it's rocky, it's hilly. They're going to have to swim with sharks, but they can do it. It's not about hoping that the path is smooth. It's about hoping that you can grow into the person you need to be in order to traverse that rocky path. So let's help our kids find their passion and let's nurture it. That's finding their superpowers, right? So the I is for identity, the S for superpowers, the U unlimited gratitude. Unlimited gratitude. This one is so important, right? When I was growing up as a kid, even though I experienced social anxiety and shyness, I was an introvert. I still am an introvert. It's not a four-letter word anymore. I used to think it was. But despite all of those things, I was blessed. I was fortunate to grow up in a middle class home. Both my parents are doctors, comfortable home, didn't want for anything. I had a great education, great group of friends that affirmed me, right? I had a lot. So being able to see that silver lining, that in and of itself is a superpower that we want to engender in our kids. So that when the world calls them lazy or worthless or bad or dumb, they can tell themselves, it doesn't matter what they say to me. I know who I am, right? I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to be grateful for what I do have. Yeah, maybe I'm too short. I was one of the shorter kids. I'm also one of the shorter adults, right? And I had a complex about that for the longest time. It took me a long time. I think probably when I started taking a lot of flights as an adult, and I would look next to me and see the guy who's 6'4" with his knees up in his chest because he was too tall in the cramped space. It took me a long time to appreciate that, hey, maybe what I do have is pretty good. It's pretty good in some situations. So just being able to have that self-encouragement, that positive self-talk is huge. In the Spider-Man lore, for example, this is a picture of Spider-Man. I think this is Tobey Maguire in one of the Spider-Man movies talking to Ben Parker, his uncle Ben. Peter Parker was actually an orphan, so he lived with his uncle and aunt, but Peter did not. A lot of people don't remember this about Spider-Man. Peter Parker was a brat. Peter Parker was not a nice person. He was a nerd. He was a geek. We're not getting on him because of that, even though he got picked on by the bullies for being nerdy and being a social outcast. We're not getting on him for that. But he did not have that gratitude. His Uncle Ben would tell him, with great power comes great responsibility, and Peter would just brush it off. He'd shrug it off. Things changed after Uncle Ben died, and Peter realized it was his fault, right? Peter's whole character changed. And so as Spider-Man, one of the reasons he's my favorite superhero is that he bears that responsibility. He took those words to heart. With great power comes great responsibility. And he just shows incredible gratitude to his Aunt May, right? Through thick and thin, he's always trying to look out for Aunt May. He's always thinking about her best interests. So we want to encourage our kids to really be grateful because our kids are so fortunate. They have much more than they need, but unfortunately, they don't always realize that. So there are lots of tactical ways that you can help your kids to increase their gratitude. 3 things you're grateful for every evening. For example, having a gratitude jar where you write a note appreciating somebody in the house once a week, doing service projects, going out to volunteer, feeding the homeless, things like that. Being able to find the silver lining in situations, being able to make do with less. They don't have to have all the latest gadgets, all the latest clothes, all the latest toys, right? Just having that culture of making do with less. These are things that can grow your child's gratitude. And Brave Young Heroes is all about that unlimited gratitude. I recently got to visit children in Ethiopia. I spent a week with orphans and homeless kids. I got to hold a 1 year old beautiful baby girl at an orphanage run by nuns. This poor girl was laying on a mattress alone. There were flies buzzing around her. So I picked her up, and one of the caretakers said, that little girl is blind. And that just, that till today hurts me so much, that not only does she not have parents, but she's also born into this world without sight. There's another young man, the picture in the middle. He's 13 years old. You could hardly tell looking at the picture, but he's actually 13 years old. He has a very severe form of rickets, something called rickets. I didn't even know what that was until I got to visit him in the hospital, and he needs surgery after surgery after surgery. They're hoping to be able to raise money, send him to Canada for some experimental surgeries. But he had the most beautiful spirit. And his caretaker said they have lessons in the hospital. He is the brightest kid by far. He is the sharpest. He has a beautiful, sharp mind and a wonderful spirit. He's able to find gratitude. Or the young man, there's another photo here. This is an 11-year-old. He has seizures. He almost bled to death recently after falling down the stairs. And bleeding out of his ear, so he's still very touch and go. And we were able to sort of lift his spirits by giving him a superhero mask and a cape, and he's able to find unlimited gratitude. Look at the smile on his face there. So just helping our kids find that unlimited gratitude is really going to change how they see the world and will build their confidence. It will build their resilience, that things don't have to be, whether it's a sunny day or a rainy day, they can still have a good day. All right. I'm gonna get off my soapbox there. Let's move on to the next one, which is purpose. Number 4 is purpose. So the I is for identity, the S for superpowers, the U unlimited gratitude, and the 4 is for purpose. Okay? Helping your kids to believe that they can impact the world. Psychology today says it is critical that you help your kids believe that they can impact the world. You think it's too early for them to impact the world? You think they're too young? Here, there's a story. This story was on the news about a month ago of this young man, wonderful little kid. He's about 6 years old, and he told his dad that he wanted to help feed the homeless after he recently saw a homeless man ask his dad for change. And so now, I think every weekend he makes peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. He goes downtown, he finds homeless people and gives them these sandwiches. And he tells them, don't forget to show love. Fantastic story. So Dr. Brooks in parents.com says, help kids to look for ways to help other people. When children feel like they're making a difference, they feel more confident, right? So whether you're young or young at heart, you can change the world. You can change the world for one, even if you're not changing the world for everyone. Here's another young man that I stumbled upon recently. This young man is in Philadelphia. He's 5 years old, and they call him Catman because he dresses up in various superhero costumes. Today he's Superman, tomorrow he's Spider-Man, day after he's Batman, and he goes around his neighborhood in Philadelphia saving homeless cats. He's 5. He's 5. Parents.com actually says, encourage your children to fantasize about the future. What kind of world do they want to live in? The world is so far from perfect. There's problems all around you if you care to look. And your kids see them. Sometimes as adults, we become jaded to the problems that have been around for so long and that feel so big. We might feel a bit helpless and we get jaded. But our kids are seeing these problems with fresh eyes, and our kids want to help. So encourage your children to fantasize about the future. Allow them to envision themselves doing something important or fulfilling when they grow up. Because when you do that, parents.com says, your kids are bound to feel more confident now. This is what I tell all kids that I see. Whether it's in Ethiopia, whether it's in Dominica or Germany or Kenya, I tell them this: I see you, I believe in you, and one day you will change the world. That was the thought that got me through those dark days as a preteen. That was the thought that got me through those teenage years as a social outcast. I told myself, I don't know what my superpowers are, but somehow, some way, I believe that one day I'm going to change the world. And I believe that about your kids as well. You just need to let them know that you believe it. Sometimes that nerdy little kid can grow up and, you know what, maybe actually affect some change. So, number 5 is empathy. If the I was identity, the S was superpowers, U unlimited gratitude, the P was purpose, the E is for empathy. We need to embrace imperfection, both in ourselves and in others. I love these photographs here because they show Peter Parker, and he looks so far from the heroic Spider-Man that we envision, right? You see Peter Parker's usual wardrobe. Glasses are too big for his face. He's got the plastic pocket protector going. He's got the out-of-style tie, right? The backpack loaded down with school textbooks. Oh, and additional books for his reading pleasure, right? His pants are hiked up above his waistline, and he's got the high riders. They don't reach his shoes. His pants come in various colors, by the way. He's got dull brown, drab brown, dismal brown, and dreary brown. And he's got the white socks with the dress shoes, just to match. Peter Parker was so far from perfect, it is not even funny. And yet, he is arguably the world's most celebrated and empathetic superhero. People love Spider-Man. There's a story, and I should have gotten a picture in here for you guys, but there's a story in the news recently about a man. I think he's in his 30s, early 30s. He goes around. He invested in a life-like Spider-Man suit, okay, and he goes around visiting terminally ill children. He has actually visited over the past 3.5 years. He's visited over 10,000 terminally ill children, day in, day out. He's visiting these kids. Now, why is that relevant? This all ties in to this imperfect Peter Parker. It's because he dressed up as Spider-Man. And those kids, even on their deathbed, they identify with Spider-Man because Spider-Man is imperfect. And yet, like they are, and despite being imperfect, he finds a way to impact the world. He finds a way to embrace his imperfections and still thrive and still shine. I'm going to tell you guys a secret, quiet as it's kept. Spider-Man was the prototype for the superheroes and brave young heroes. Spider-Man is by far my favorite superhero. He impacted me so viscerally, and I find that he's impacted so many people. That character, and I'm talking about him like he's real. That character has impacted so many people that when I started to create superheroes, I said, what is it about Spider-Man that really appeals to me so much? Well, one is that he was one of the few kid superheroes. He was a teenager. He was 15 when he first became Spider-Man. But he's imperfect. He's broken. And despite that, he still saves the world. So that's why I created a superhero from Germany whose power is empathy, and she happens to have Down syndrome. I created a superhero from Mexico whose power is flying, and he happens to be scared of heights. He gets panic attacks and throws up. I created a superhero from Japan, half samurai, half ninja, all OCD. These heroes are imperfect, and still they save the world. We have a teenager from a superhero from England with autism. He's the world's greatest teen detective. A kid from the US, he's a mechanical genius despite being dyslexic. And on and on and on. We have superheroes just from every continent, almost every continent. I got to get to Australia next. But we have superheroes from everywhere. with various things that make them feel less than. They're not less than, but they feel less than because of these conditions, right? And despite feeling less than, they overcome adversity, they find their confidence, and they save the world. We've got to help our kids to embrace imperfection. They will never be perfect. We don't expect them to be perfect, and we shouldn't put the pressure on them to make them think we need them to be perfect. Number 6, resilience. All right, the I was for identity, the S for superpowers, the U unlimited gratitude, the P is for purpose, E is for empathy, the R is for resilience. This is Dr. Ivan Joseph. He is a national soccer champion coach, and he gave a TED Talk. It's been seen over 13 million times, right? Where he talked about the power of mastering persistence through what? Failure. Mastering persistence through failure. Why would we want our kids to fail? This is again something that the Spider-Man hero epitomizes. Even as a superhero, he was demonized. Even as a superhero, he was not appreciated. He was mischaracterized and misquoted and misrepresented. But we need our kids to master that persistence through failure. No one ever masters persistence through success. Success is the worst teacher, right? Because you succeed and you're not quite sure which of the 100 things you did actually led to that success. Success is not always easy to reproduce, but when you fail, oh, that's when you become introspective. That's when you try to figure out, well, okay, what went wrong? Where did I mess up? And do I have the strength to get back up? One of my favorite sayings, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. We need our kids to be determined. We need them to be persistent. We need them to be resilient. The struggle is real. The struggle is real, guys. I love this picture because it shows the Pixar characters looking, a little worse for wear, not looking very happy. And here's what this reminds me of. A few years ago, this was years into, probably 3 or 4 years into growing Brave Young Heroes. I think at that point I had about 12 books published. Things were going well, and I said, you know what? It's been one of my lifelong dreams to create a movie for Disney. I know I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to do that yet, but in order to get on that path, I need to work with the best. I need to work at Disney. And so I resolved to get a job. I said, I want to go to the animation department in Pixar. Pixar was the company that was doing all of Disney's best animations. I said, I'm going to work at Pixar. So I applied. You know what I did? I went on LinkedIn and I found the VP of Human Resources, VP of HR at Pixar, and I sent her an email. I said, "Hi, you don't know me, but hey, I'm so and so, and this is what I do. I'm going to be working with you shortly. I just wanted to introduce myself, and I'm looking forward to being your colleague." I was confident. Boy. I was ready. And she actually, that was a crazy email to send. She was kind enough to respond. This was very gracious of her. She actually responded and said, "Hi, I have nothing to do with any of the approval processes, but I'm sure that the managers will consider you fairly, and I love your enthusiasm, and I wish you the best of luck." So I was pumped. I was ready. I was like, this is about to happen. So I applied to 1 job at Pixar. I applied to 2. I applied to 3 jobs at Pixar. 4, 5, 6, all rejections. The struggle is real. But I was persistent, wasn't I? So I applied to the 7th job, the 8th, the 9th. Rejections. The struggle is real. But I stayed persistent through the failure. I applied to 10, 11, and 12 jobs, and all rejections. I think I even applied to be like office assistant or something at that. But I was like, I just want to get my foot in the door. But the struggle was real. I was rejected 12 times, and at this point, I was so ticked off. Like, what is wrong with these people? Can't they see? Can't they see what I've got? And would you know that one of the directors at Pixar actually got back to me and he said, "Hey, I've been looking at your work. You've really got something here. Pixar might not be the right fit for you right now, but don't give up. Keep going." Well, I have to admit, that wasn't necessarily the most comforting thing when I was envisioning myself working at Pixar, but I took his words to heart and I kept going. A few years later, instead of having 12 books published, I now had 50. 50 books published, traveling all over the world, delivering this message to kids that one day they will change the world. Master persistence through failure. Our kids need to fail in order to become the best versions of themselves. Something else that develops resilience is a sense of humor. We actually have to teach our kids how to laugh, how to laugh at themselves. Humor is able to, parenting.com actually said this, humor is able to allow kids to get through very tough situations. So whether it's bad knock knock jokes or whatever else it is, allow your kids to practice humor. And the seventh and final, this is the secret step. Remember, I said the I was for identity, the S for superpowers, the U unlimited gratitude, the P is for purpose, E is for empathy, the R is for resilience, and the seventh is practice. Practice, practice, practice. In particular, so all of these, here's one of the things that we struggle with as parents. There's so much information out there, isn't there, about how to do parenting right, about what we're doing wrong. Even our kids are receiving so much information from school and from us and from other institutions about what to do and when to do it and how to do it. Sometimes we get information overload, but we learn better, the lesson sticks better when we put things into practice, right? So I've given you those 6 things, the iSuper acronym, to help your kids become confident, for you to raise confident kids. But the 7th is actually the most important. They have to practice all 6. And in particular, they want to practice with a mentor. So you guys recognize that for every great hero, there is a mentor, right? Whether it's Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi, whether it's Rocky Balboa and his coach, or Simba, and is that practice is the difference. Applying the lessons is what. Here's the fascinating thing. Pretty much every top professional athlete in the world, whether it's gymnastics, ice skating, dancing, football, rugby, tennis, every top athlete in the world still has a coach. If you're the best in the world, why do you still need a coach? Everybody actually needs a coach to help you walk through the most diligent ways for you to improve. Mary Poppins, one of the greatest on-screen mentors ever. She helped those kids practice their character strengths. So we need to make sure that our kids are having the opportunity to practice those 6 steps in the iSuper acronym. Identity, superpowers, unlimited gratitude, purpose, empathy, and resilience. Now, remember I asked you this question earlier. Confidence. Is it a feeling or is it an action? Is it a feeling or an action? Here's the answer, right? There's a wonderful book. I highly recommend you pick this up, as well as the other books that I've referenced in this presentation. But this book is by Dr. Russ Harris, and it's called The Confidence Gap. In that book, Dr. Harris asserts that the actions of confidence always have to come first. The feelings of confidence come later. Now, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for our kids? What that means, and boy, I so resonate with this as a shy kid, as a socially anxious kid, as a kid who had that voice in my head that said, "Nah, don't do that. They're gonna laugh at you. You're gonna be embarrassed. You're gonna embarrass yourself." This resonates with me. A lot of times I would know what the right action was, but because I wouldn't have that feeling of confidence, I wouldn't take action. so many opportunities passed me by. Even in college, so many opportunities passed me by because I skipped the action, waiting for the feeling, right? I skipped the action. I missed the action, the opportunity to take confident action because I was waiting for the confident feeling to overcome me. And when that feeling didn't come, I didn't take the action. And as a result, I missed out. This is a huge lesson for us and for our kids. Even when they don't feel confident, that's okay. That's human. That's normal. They can still take confident action. And it doesn't mean that they'll immediately feel confidence right after. They won't. But if they repeatedly and persistently take confident action despite the lack of confident feelings, eventually what happens? Eventually they get good at doing that thing. Eventually they get good at talking to strangers or talking in crowds or speaking up for themselves or ice skating, roller skating, whatever it is. If you practice enough times, you eventually get good, and with that competence comes confidence. With that competence comes confidence. All right, so these are the 7 steps for raising a confident kid. We actually help with all of these steps by implementing that practice in Hero Academy. Right? So we've created a school for raising superheroes. It's pretty cool. I'm very, very excited about it. This is the stuff that I've been putting together for my kids over the past few years, and I've been encouraged. A lot of parents have been asking me to share what's been working for us in our family. And so it's the identity, its superpowers, its unlimited gratitude, its purpose, its empathy, its resilience, and it's practicing those things on a daily basis. Look, I get it. As parents, each of us is busy. We are overwhelmed. We are stressed with the schedule of driving kids back and forth and work and grown-up responsibilities. That's why in Superhero Academy, we've put together fun lessons. We've provided fun superhero books where kids can learn how to shape their own identity, how to find their own superpowers, how to practice gratitude, how to live on purpose, how to have empathy for themselves and others, how to build resilience. We not only tell them what to do, we step them through it and we walk with them along the way step by step. So you could go to superheroacademy.fun to learn more about the Hero Academy. There are always competitions and prizes and things like that going on. So your kids are absolutely going to be blown away by it. And I think you will too. I think you will too. The bottom line on grit, according to Angela Duckworth, the bottom line on grit is this. If you want to be grittier, find a gritty culture and join it. If you want to be more resilient, find a resilient culture and join it. If you want to be more confident, find a confident culture and join it. That's what we've put together for your kids at superheroacademy.fun. superheroacademy.fun. We've put together a community and a culture that is teaching grit, that is practicing perseverance, that is instilling confidence, that is teaching kids empathy and humor and kindness, and we're doing it representing kids from all over the world, right? We've got a hero from Mexico. We've got a hero from the US. We've got a hero from Egypt. If a kid is looking for somebody with asthma, autism, dyslexia, we represent that. We've got a kid from Argentina, got a kid from China, superheroes from all over the world. And I like to say that kids need both in their books. They need both mirrors and windows. They need mirrors in that they need heroes that look like them so they can aspire, right? They can say one day, I want to be like that hero. But they also need windows so they can look into someone else's life and develop empathy. They can say, I like what that person stands for. I empathize with them. I'm not like them 100%, but I can still have empathy for them. I can still hope the best for them. So we're building empathy, we're building resilience, and ultimately we are building confidence. Our kids don't have to be perfect, but they're not broken either. They are made perfectly imperfect, right? Carol Dweck, Dr. Carol Dweck says, we like to think of our champions as and idols as superheroes who are born different from us. We don't like to think of them as relatively ordinary people who made themselves extraordinary. So in Brave Young Heroes, we take all of our kids, ordinary, and we help them find that extraordinary that lies within them. So I hope you've gained a lot. I hope you took a lot of notes in this presentation, the 7 secrets to raising confident kids. It's 7 steps. Now remember, information alone doesn't change situations. Applied information changes situations. And if you want to apply this information in your life and your kids' lives, go to superheroacademy.fun. Give Hero Academy a try. I guarantee you are going to love it. This is Balaji O, Dr. Hero. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being amazing. And I want to tell you, and I want to tell your children, I see you, I believe in you, and one day you will change the world. Thank you.